Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so companies can grow and thrive. And I am very excited to introduce today's podcast, which is Jason Yarusi. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Eddie. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Great to have you on the podcast. And, Success Replicated totally aligns with what you do and what we're going to talk about today.
Sure does.
Right? Exactly. I mean, you are a very successful entrepreneur and you exited several businesses. You're very successful in what you do, but you have an amazing story of overcoming obstacles to get to where you're at. And I love those podcasts when I have guests that have this inspirational story, how they overcame obstacles, things that were in their way, they changed the mindset, and they just moved forward and charged and just like winning in life. And not only that, they have the passion to help others do achieve the same. They don't just keep it for themselves, right? I mean, I have several podcasts that I just interviewed several people that they went through some evolution, some change in life, and then they want to share it with others. And that's what I love, right? Because you figure out how to break bad habit, how to change the course of your fate, your existence, however you want to call it. And then you figured it out, you mapped it out, and now you're sharing it with others. So I think that's amazing. And I'd like to add a little bit more to this introduction by you so you can tell us where you are today in terms of your business, in terms of what you do. And then let's dive into your story to get the background on how you got there. And then we're going to talk about specific habits that people can break or specific paths that they can follow. It's the Live 100. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Fantastic. Yeah, excited to get started. So I'm Jason Yarusi. I live here just south of Nashville, Tennessee and Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Since 2017, I've acquired a little over 3,000 units of apartments. So basically, we buy apartment buildings through our company, Yarusi Holdings. It's a little more than about $300 million of real estate value that we manage today. We're currently in 7 states, and this model has worked proactively by us finding underperforming assets and making them just better places to live, which of course creates outsized returns for our investors. Be happy to talk a little bit just about where we started too, is that, I made a lot of changes and choices in my life, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners can relate that we look back on and they weren't really the best choices, right? But at the time, they seemed to be the logical fit. I grew up in a household where, I had great parents, but they struggled, right? I had a dad who had a construction business and he struggled. And I was learned into bad habits with money. I had a bad relationship with money because everything that was taught to me was that people who were rich were in some part had done something that they had cheated somebody else to get where they were, right? So I had just had a negative relationship with money, and I just really had the approach, seeing the struggle that my parents did, that I would never have money, right? Because we worked hard, right? If we leveled up what my dad did, he outworked everybody. But hard work pointing in the wrong direction usually and most times really gets you the wrong results. Had some really bad things happen in my teen years too. My best friend, he got hit by a boat and died when he was 13. At 14, I had a friend commit suicide. At 15, a friend of my sports team got in a car accident. He died. And then I had a girlfriend that I had really was really someone I'd been with for 4 years. And when I was 17, she got killed in a car accident. So my relationship with all these bad things that I learned about money, and then not really feeling I could trust that I would have a relationship with people because everyone around me got taken away, really led me into a poor path. And, I went to college, was lost there, came out of college, didn't have much direction, moved to New York City and started working in bars and restaurants, right? And I had a really transactional life where, you serve a drink, you hope to get a tip, right? And that's what you would do. So a lot of my life was built on activity. And as that happened, I just had worked really hard, right? I came from a part that didn't have a good relationship with people nor money, but I knew how to work hard, just put my head down and work. And so I had amassed almost, I think, right about $100,000 in cash tips. And overnight, one night, I had put this where I thought it would be safe, right? I'm living in New York City. And I came home one time to find that this money had been taken by someone who was having a really rough economic time. So I went back, what I thought, put my head down and started working again. And 2 days later, I'm riding home from work on my bike, and it was about 2:30 in the morning, and I got hit by a car. Right. So I was at this job I didn't want to be at. Right. I just had this horrific event where now this money was taken. And then lo and behold, I'm lying in the middle of the street, all beat up and taken to the hospital with broken bones. I had broken a bone in my shoulder. I snapped something in my wrist, a bunch of stitches. And all I can think about was that, man, I have to get back to work. Right. Because I have to make money because I had rent coming up. So all these things led me to this moment in time where I just said, wait, okay, I put my head down. I've worked hard. I'm getting nowhere. I keep having bad things happen, and I can no longer look out and say, this is everyone else's fault. I have to take responsibility and say, I need to make a change. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will sit here and listen like, yeah, I'm in this bad spot too. I have to make a change, but what do you do, right? And I was at a thought where I didn't know what to do. I just knew I could not do what I was doing now, because what I was doing now is just going to continue to get me poor results going forward. So I made the change that no matter what, I'm going to start making changes. And it didn't happen overnight, but lo and behold, I started to make small positive changes in my day, right? So, working at bars, you would drink, you would stay out late. So I started taking that out. I started getting back into the gym. I started doing things, learning more, just putting myself into discovery mode. And lo and behold, I started making small changes that led me to, opening a restaurant and bar, opening and selling a brewery, going out and helping my dad, who had struggled with this construction company, spending a lot of years through about 2011 to 2017, helping him expand his business to the point that he could get out and retire, and then moving into the real estate world that we've now grown the portfolio to, from where we started with nothing to, a little over 300 million in real estate.
It's incredible, an incredible story. So, I'm curious, like, let's take it a construction company with your dad, right? So he was struggling and you saw him struggling. And it seems to me from your story, it's the mindset about money and the mindset of not really trusting, if people, from what you said, and you were able to turn it around and then exit that company. From your observation, what are the mistakes that he made once you went into the business and you looked at it probably from more objective, with a more objective eye, not necessarily as the son that grew up in that household and whatever you experienced, but when you went there from the business owner perspective, what did you see that were the mistakes that you were able to turn around and actually make it a better business?
Yeah, and it was not easy because, for a son to come in there, and actually my little brother was working for me in the city at the time too. So he came and we started helping dad with the family business. It's not easy for a dad to take advice from the son, but, sometimes I find that, you get stuck in a jar and you can't see the label from the inside, right? And with the business there was very simply, he would go and quote a job. He'd be the person quoting the job, but also the person doing the work, right? So if you're quoting the job and then you're the one doing the work and you need to do the work just to make ends meet to survive, he was doing all the hats, right? He was wearing all the hats. So he would go quote the job, but they would never follow up, right? He'd be like, well, if they want me, they'll call me back, right? Where you would have other people just systematically get in a rotation. They go out, quote the job, they go back, maybe there was something that changed, and they would have this repeat process that would go out there and follow up, right? So the follow-up automatically just started having more response time, more jobs being booked. The next piece is that he had a small crew. It was a very niche business that we did here, and he would do all of it. He would have 5 guys there and he would be doing all the roles, right? Because he wanted to be perfect. He was a perfectionist, which I appreciate, but at times if someone needs to dig a hole, and I have my dad, who's now just in his early 70s, but he's in the 60s here digging a hole while 4 other guys are watching him, right? The business is being stopped because one man is doing all the roles, right? So if you have 10 things in life and they all need to get done, well, there are people that may be better served to do that role. So today in our business, right, I could wear all the hats, but if I have 10 things to do, maybe I'll get 2 of them done at 100 and the other 8 will get done at 0, right? So the other 8 won't get done. Where in fact, if I have a team now, and could I potentially do them better in a team? Maybe, but they get accomplished and they get completed, right? So the business was stopped and started by my dad being a one-man show. And when it's a heavy construction business where one man is doing all, your limitations are yourself, right? You're shutting it off. And the battle was to put in scalability to the business, put in systems and processes so we could support the process and allow my dad to be more of the oversight. Because what he did do is he knew everything. He was very skilled, very professional in how it was, and he wanted the best result. But we had to convince him that we can still get the best result without him having to do A through Z of the process. And that took it was not easy, not easy in an Italian family to convince a stubborn father, and I'm stubborn myself, right, that there's another way. Because like I came up, the realization I had is that what I have done has produced the same result. And if I keep doing this, I would be crazy to think the result's going to be different. And lo and behold, my dad had done this for a number of decades, the same thing. And he has faced the same struggles. So to convince and say, listen, we have to rip the Band-Aid off and try something else because we will be able to get a different result was not easy. But we eventually slowly did it. And we went from doing, a small amount of jobs to, next month, a bigger amount of jobs and a bigger amount of jobs. And we continued to scale and scale because we put in processes to support the knowledge that my dad had while, in fact, being able to complete the work, right? Because you can have all the know-how in the world. Like many get stuck in the learning phase and knowing everything, but you need to implement and act to get the results.
Absolutely. And that's where success replicated. That's how we came up with the tagline, is because from working with so many businesses is exactly what you are describing. You want to replicate the success. I mean, your dad had a lot of successful things that he has done. I mean, he has done the impossible of starting a business and staying in business. But then in order to scale it, you have to take that knowledge and you have to replicate it, right? You have to put it there. Like from your perspective as the business owner, and I'm sure you have it also in your real estate holding company, like why processes are so important?
If you can repeat a system, like many times, especially today's age, like with social media, we want everything to look new and shiny, right? But being in real estate, like boring can be great, right? A boring business can be great because it's replicatable, right? And you can plug people into a system. If every time I, as the founder, right, as the owner, if every time something has to happen, I have to stop everything I'm doing and then teach someone how to do it, right? And potentially they may move on to something else, or we may need to move them to a new role. And when a new person comes in, I have to repeat that process again, right? I'm taking away my highest, best use from the time. So if I can set up a process of how a person replicates and how a person works within the system there, then that process can be taught. Because if the goal is to scale, right, eventually that person is going to scale to a new position and they can replace the person that they were in that space, right? So you have to have a process. And because if you don't have a process, how can you have any kind of performance indicator to say how your results are working, right? If you're not getting the results and there's no process, then you have to look back about, okay, what is my process that's gotten me to these results? Because then you can say, well, the process isn't right? If I'm going out there and I'm trying to buy apartment buildings and I'm not getting something under contract to close, okay, well, let's look at the process, right? Am I having enough broker conversations or enough reach outs to potential sellers of apartment communities to have enough leads come in that I can go and underwrite those leads to see if they're potential fits for my investment criteria, right? So if I'm not, okay, I need to put my outbound marketing and focusing and making sure I have enough outreach. If I am, and I'm underwriting properties, am I focusing on the wrong type of property? Is my analysis off? Am I not being reasonable about the economic terms or the investment goals that I'm seeking, right? So I have to look at my process to say, okay, if I'm not getting deals to offer on, where in the chain of the process is it failing?
Absolutely. So from a business owner perspective, what's the ROI? Obviously, you want to increase profits, but there are other also ROIs in life, right? As you described, having your a great life, having a family, doing, it's whatever it is, the return on investment. But from your experience, what is the return on investment? What do you get at the end if you have well-documented processes and procedures, well-defined, well-documented, well-implemented processes and procedures?
You get time, right? You get a lot of time back. And that's exactly what you want, because the business is there to give you the life you want, right? If you're in the business right now and you're not sure where your life wants to go, you have to get back to say, like, what's my choice here, right? Like, we started Yarusi Holding and started moving into real estate because even with construction and through the bar world, I was in a very transactional state, right? And so my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time when we moved out to help with the construction business. We're now married. She's pregnant with our first kid. And all we knew was that everything we had done in our life, right? Like, she had worked in the bar world with me, right? Was something that we had to go out there to complete a task to have the chance to get paid or get a tip or figure out anything else in that narrative. And we, starting a young family, realized we had no time, right? If there was 25 hours in a day, we could use them because we just had to consistently do some activity to get some work to potentially make money. So we kept asking the question, like, what else could there be out there, right? And we came upon various forms of real estate that, again, were transactional. We started flipping houses, doing all these other things that were taking away our time. And when I discovered apartment buildings, I had that aha moment that I could put together a system, a process, and empower forward other team members, right? We have our internal team that help us on all parts of analyzing and running the deal. And then we have an external team. And this is where the power is with the external team, the property managers, the brokers, the insurance agents, the lenders, right? We're able to buy these apartment buildings and empower forward a process that does not have to have us doing every part of it. This gets us back our time. And with our time, we can go out there and enjoy, I have 3 kids now, enjoy to go, I was at Christmas parties at the kids' schools, right? Go and do these little activities, right? That I don't have to be stricken to do this transactional state just to make $1 and make ends meet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That makes total sense. So how do you help others with the Live 100?
A lot of everything I've done was realizing that I had bad habits. And, over the course of a day, like 40% of our habits are repeated, right? And if you are built upon 40% of bad habits and you're repeating that each and every day, how can you have a success in life, right? So I started implementing strategic things in my life, right? Coming in this part that I had to really become aware of where I am. We all have our starting point, and that's fine, right? Right now, if you're working in a factory, right, or you're jobless, or you've just had a foreclosure, right? Wherever you are is your starting point, and that's fine. Your past is not going to dictate your future, but you do have to go out there and take intentional execution to create a path forward for yourself. And where the Live 100 program has come upon is that I had a roadmap, right? With my real estate, I basically go through 12 steps from finding a deal all the way to acquiring and managing a deal. But with my life, I built a roadmap that really got me to where I am today. So I put this down to help empower others for it. And the Live 100 program, you go to live-100.com to find out more, is where you can go and have a process to break your bad habits, to magnify a successful future, and then build upon that success. And I do that through 9 pillars, through everything from elevated self-awareness, just understanding currently who you are, and then owning who you are, and then creating your greater self. And as you move forward into that, you're going to be intentional with how you're going to execute, because you're going to face very uncomfortable times, and you have to be brave during that time, right? We face pain when we change. And when we face that pain, it takes time, right? And when you are stuck in a rhythm, right, whether it's the people you're around or just the life you've built, it's going to be uncomfortable because you are no longer going to be satisfied with where you are. And if you're not satisfied with where you are, that's what the Live program helps you go forward to build, is your new you, your new self, because you want to be limitless in life. Many times we limit where we can go in life, where we want to be in life, and how we want to show up because of what has been trained in us from our past and also the people around us. But everyone can have success. If you want to just find a better life, well, then let's start today. If you're stuck and you're happy with where you are, that's fine too. But most of us have and want a better future, but we just don't know where to start. And so I put together the Live 100 program to give people that jumpstart, a roadmap, a system forward that they can execute to get the life that they deserve to have.
Absolutely. Jason, beautifully said. I'm going to include, obviously, the link to it in our show notes. Any other way that our listeners can get a hold of you?
Yeah. So we have a podcast, the Live 100 podcast. We go out there. I talk a lot just about the life lessons that I've had. You can follow me also over on Instagram at Jason Yarusi.
Awesome. And I definitely encourage our listeners to do that. Jason, it's been amazing having you here as a guest. Definitely a lot of words of wisdom that I'm sure our listeners learned a lot from. And it's very inspiring. Your life story, how you got yourself to where you are today, very inspirational. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.